Listen to The Barry Morgan Show, live weekdays noon to 3 on CJAD 800 and CJAD.com.
12:51 is the time, and the news coming up in less than 10 minutes here on CJAD. After last week's deadly attack against police officers in Dallas, Texas, police departments across the states, many of them at least, are trying to find more innovative ways, creative ways to fight and prevent things like racial tension, mass shootings, global terror. Dr. Alex Carmen is the executive director and a professor at the School of Criminology at Tarleton State University in Fort Worth, Texas. He works with police departments across the United States on officer training, tactics, combating racial profiling. Dr. Carmen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for your time. And what are some of the tactics that you're hoping more police forces will begin to use?
Well, I think what happened on Thursday night in Dallas has really been a game changer for law enforcement throughout the United States. And one of the things that we're beginning to understand is whether or not it is wise to simply allow protesters to follow a path that they have not been approved to follow. Also, what kind of weaponry law enforcement will carry to these protests, and whether or not we should be concerned about individuals shooting at the masses that are protesting.
Well, in Ferguson, Missouri, police were criticized for their military or their military-like response to protests. So, I guess the key is to find the happy medium, but then you don't necessarily know who you're dealing with, like we saw last week in Dallas.
Right, and so that's part of the challenge as well, is that we just honestly do not know who we're dealing with. We don't know what kind of circumstances are going to change in a matter of 1 second without any prior notice. And so law enforcement have to be ready for pretty much anything at any time.
And what about that explosion, that robot explosion that took out the sniper last week in Dallas? A lot of people are still talking about that in terms of how they've never seen something like that before, at least not in that kind of a circumstance.
That's right, and I think what we have seen is those types of events and those types of robotic devices that have some sort of a detonation, in this case a C4, which is a highly explosive device. We've seen those overseas. We've seen other militaries throughout the world use it, but never in the United States as part of a domestic law enforcement situation. So it is, in fact, a very new and different way of dealing with threats.
Would you imagine we'll be seeing more of those kinds of situations, at least situations where they'll bring out those kinds of robots?
I imagine so, and I imagine that there will be people throughout the country that are going to be asking themselves whether or not we should be doing that more often instead of exposing police officers and innocent bystanders to individuals that are radicalized to the extent that they will not see any kind of an out to a situation except for death.
Fair enough. And do you, just before I let you go here, do you find public opinion has changed a lot in terms of how people perceive police officers these days?
I think that public opinion has taken an emotional turn from a lot of the videos and a lot of the things that we are seeing as part of our everyday existence in the U.S. And I think that is going to continue to have an impact, sadly, on the way the public feels towards law enforcement.
Dr. Carmen, thank you. I appreciate your time today. That's Dr. Alex Carmen. He's a professor, the executive director as well, at the School of Criminology at Tarleton State University in Fort Worth, Texas.